Well, let's bring Steve MacKinnon into the conversation right now, the Minister for Jobs and Families. He's here to talk about the federal government's response to the Trump tariffs. Minister, thank you for taking the time.
Good evening, Michael.
Listen, right after Trump unveiled his global tariffs this week, workers at Windsor's Stellantis plant were told that they'd be losing at least 2 weeks worth of work. And that happened in less than 24 hours. So I'm wondering about the calculations your government has been making. When you look at the auto sector right now, just how many jobs could potentially be affected by the tariffs introduced really last week by Mr. Trump, but in effect now?
Well, I would refer you to the experts in the industry who comment on these things regularly, who speak of supply chain delays and cars that cross the border 5 or 6 times down to Mexico, back up to Canada with suppliers from all over an automotive ecosystem. Of course, these tariffs will reverberate throughout that supply chain, throughout North America. With negative impacts on jobs. These are things we've been warning the U.S. administration about for many, many months now, as have others, and of course the companies themselves. You saw the CEO of Ford talk about the negative impact on the North American car industry that these tariffs would have, and we regret, of course, a single job loss, a single layoff for a single week. We are in total solidarity with the people in that local and Unifor in Windsor, and we will stand by workers in every car plant, in every assembly plant, in every car auto part manufacturing facility, and every part of that supply chain in Canada. Will fight for every single job.
hmm I think a lot of Canadians are wondering, just how bad this is going to get. Because, the auto sector is one sector. It is a key sector in terms of the national economy, but only really one sector. These tariffs are everywhere and pretty broad based. Just how bad is it going to get? When you get that question from Canadians, what do you say to them?
Well, I say the first thing is that at some point, we hope, you see the stock market in the last couple of days, that common sense will prevail. That is a supreme vote of lack of confidence in this, what we view as a misguided tariff plan by the U.S. administration. So we have a plan to fight that, and we have a plan in the presence of that. If the U.S. administration decides to fully implement this, well, Canada will go its own way, make its own decisions, and pursue its own destiny. And that destiny includes an automobile industry. That also that plan includes a supply chain network that will be upgraded, building homes, building railways, building energy infrastructure, building port facilities. This country needs to get building, to diversify our trade markets, to renew our infrastructure, and obviously to keep people at work. So what I would say is that tariffs are bad. They will hurt. They will hurt Americans too. They will hurt Americans in a big way, and you're seeing that again expressed in equity markets. But you will especially see the government of Canada work with provinces, have one economy, not 13 economies, and make sure that our country pursues an alternative economic path.
Alternative economic path, and you noted the markets, and of course what we saw yesterday was the worst one-day loss since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. And when you rewind to that time, that was when financial supplements were handed out to individuals and businesses. Is that what your government is prepared to do should it get to the point where these tariffs are fully implemented and not going away?
Well, this is an important point you raised, Michael, and Mr. Carney has been very clear that the proceeds of any countermeasures that we put in place to fight these tariffs and inflict damage on the United States, well, those proceeds will be directed towards those workers who are affected. And that is a very, very clear difference with our opponents in this election. Mr. Poilievre has said he's going to take that money and apply across the board tax cuts, including to the wealthiest in society. So what you would have is a Windsor auto worker fundamentally with his job or with her job underwriting a tax cut for a wealthy person from somewhere else in Canada. We don't believe that's right. what we believe is right is to apply the proceeds of that to defend automobile production in Canada, to help the workers who are most directly impacted. That's the vision that we're putting forward. We'd prefer not to be having this conversation or this debate. We want to see what can be done to minimize or eliminate these misguided and illegal tariffs. But if we can't do that, then we've been very, very clear that we'll be there for workers, we'll be there for industries, we'll be there for businesses who suffer harm.
When you talk about those proceeds, Minister, will they be enough to supplement incomes? Will they be enough to cover the programs you want to create?
Well, of course, I call it the bouncing ball, Michael. You have steel and aluminum tariffs, and you have fentanyl tariffs that have been sort of postponed. And then you have the auto tariffs that were just announced a few days ago. He still says that he's going to tariff semiconductors or copper or forest products. So it's, as you can imagine, and this is true for the rest of the world as well, it's pretty hard to follow that bouncing ball because it never seems to stop bouncing. So I can better answer your question, your very good question. When that ball stops bouncing, one thing you can be sure of is that if more tariffs are applied to Canada, to any sector of our economy, forest workers in British Columbia or Quebec, semiconductor workers to the mining industry, you can be sure that we will respond in kind, and we will respond in ways that inflict major damage on the U.S. economy as well.
Minister MacKinnon, always appreciate the time. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Michael.